Okay, so we were speaking about the six schools of philosophy, and the purpose of discussing this is that we're teaching Advaita Vedanta, and you have to understand what is the connection or what's the relationship between Advaita Vedanta and why does it even exist. And the way to explain this is by understanding it comes from the six schools of philosophy, and they all say that reality is like this. And you say, this is amazing because there are rishis who are supporting the vision. Like there are rishis who are supporting the vision that Purva Mimamsa is about doing rituals and doing good things in this world, which is necessary, of course, and rituals do have a huge benefit in your life, which we will speak about, why they have a huge benefit in your life. But then when it goes when it says that the whole point is to go to heaven, then the question is, okay, but where is heaven? How do I prove heaven? Can I even prove it? Can I disprove it? I can't do either. So the risks or the stakes are too high because we're talking about your life here. So if I kind of put my understanding that there's this place called heaven, and here I am, right, who just wants to understand the nature of reality, then the stakes become a little bit too high because I don't really know if there is heaven. And also, for example, Vedanta will say, heaven, you will go to eternal heaven. Now, logically, can eternity begin? Like eternal heaven, it's going to begin now. You say, well, it doesn't matter. Heaven was there all along. You're going to eternal heaven. So this is what's called an objection. So they will now object Vedanta. Vedanta says you can't go to eternal heaven because heaven, you cannot start eternity. And I say, no. You don't understand because you're going to eternity. The eternity was already there. Now, what does the Vedantin have to do? They have to provide a counter objection. So how do you think you would counter this? Suppose I'm from Purva Mimamsa and I say heaven does exist and it's eternal and you're going to eternal heaven. What would you say to this? And they say to you,
well, a limited action wouldn't bring you to eternal heaven.
So the Shan is now talking about, since Purva Mimamsa is speaking of rituals and actions, every ritual or action, how long does it last? Suppose 10 minutes. 10 minutes. And an action that lasts 10 minutes, is that an action that lasts 20 minutes? No. And an action that lasts 20 minutes, is that equal to an action that lasts 21 minutes? No. So this means no matter what actions you do, they by nature will be time bound. And a time-bound action can only give you a corresponding time-bound result. Therefore, for the one who has done rituals, for how long have they done rituals for? 20 years? 30 years? Why not 31? Because I didn't live that long. That's fine. You will go to heaven 30 years worth of reward. If you did 35 years worth of rituals, you would have gotten 35 years worth of reward. This is how the nature of action is to be understood as that which is limited. A limited action can only give you a limited result. This is just logic. If I meditate for 15 minutes, then I will attain a certain state of mind. If I meditate for 30 minutes, you will also attain a certain state of mind, but it's going to be different than the one of 15 minutes worth of action. And then if you meditate for 5 hours, it's going to be very different than both the 15 minutes and the 30 minutes. Therefore, no matter what action you do, it's always going to provide you a limited result. This is just logic, if you think about it. Okay. Now, someone asked an interesting question about Nirvikalpa Samadhi. Nirvikalpa Samadhi, as I said, it's a state that the person attains. It's a state. When I say the word state, I specifically mean it's a time-bound experience. So when you drive a car, you have a time-bound experience of driving a car for, suppose, 1 hour, or flying a plane for 5 hours. Now, in Nirvikalpa Samadhi, what you do there is you go into a state where the person, the meditator, disappears. There's no more meditator. There's no more person who tried to go to Nirvikalpa Samadhi. That wanter disappears. That desirer of the experience disappears. In other words, the desirer for Nirvikalpa Samadhi was there before the Nirvikalpa Samadhi and was needed to be there, and the desirer had to go through a certain process in their mind to attain Nirvikalpa Samadhi. And what is Nirvikalpa Samadhi? Getting rid of the desirer. And when the desirer is gone, all that remains is I am. Now look at this. Who goes to Nirvikalpa Samadhi? Just speak directly. Who goes to Nirvikalpa Samadhi? I do. Right? I do. Like personal. First person, singular. I do. So I go to Nirvikalpa Samadhi. What happens there? What disappears in Nirvikalpa? The person. What is the person referring to? The desire, the wanter. So wanter is no more. What else? The body disappears. Body disappears. From the standpoint of that experience, not physically. What else disappears? Concerns, worries, what else? The whole mind. The whole mind is gone. But who entered Nirvikalpa Samadhi? I did. And what is no longer in Nirvikalpa Samadhi? The wanter, the body, the mind, but what is still there? The same I who was here now. So what does this mean? One thing didn't disappear. What disappeared? That which is not I. Otherwise, if you disappeared, why would you go to Nirvikalpa Samadhi? That would be death of you. Therefore, who would even try to go to Nirvikalpa Samadhi if that means the end of my existence? And nobody wants to end their existence. So just the fact that the person is motivated to enter a state where there is no person implies I already understand I will be there. The same I that's here is going to be in Nirvikalpa Samadhi. But what is not going to be Nirvikalpa Samadhi? That which is not I. That which is, my concerns, my worries, my life, my who I am, who I'm not, all of these doubts are gone. So this means the person, the yogi, intrinsically understands there will be something still there. The only thing with Nirvikalpa is that you have to keep on attaining it over and over and over again, but you always come back. In other words, who comes back? Still the ignorant person who wants to attain it one more time. So what Vedanta says is, you don't have to go through these states that last 15 or 20 minutes. You need to understand that you are already that I that you're seeking right now. And how is it going to do that? Well, that's where we stopped the last session. What specifically does Vedanta speak of? It speaks of two realities or two big ideas that need to be ascertained. The first one is the conscious subject. Okay? The conscious subject. So the conscious subject means the one that is conscious. Okay? And you say, who's conscious? Who's conscious? You're forced to say, I am. You're just forced to say I am because it's just evident. So the conscious subject can never be the object. Because if the conscious subject were to be an object, then the question is who's observing? Who's observing that object, right? And the answer is always going to be I am. So the subject can never be an object. And the object is always seen in the presence of the subject. Okay? Is this clear? So the first understanding in Vedanta is the difference between the subject and the object. The subject is the conscious I, the one in whose presence this experience is now happening. And the object is the experience that's happening. Okay. The second topic that Vedanta talks about is what we call the cause of universe. The cause of the universe. Now, what does the word universe comprise? The word universe. In Sanskrit, we call it Jagat. Time, space, and objects. So when we say the cause of the universe, can that be objectified? Considering the cause of the universe is the truth of time, space, and objects. So let me just rephrase this again. What can you objectify? What is known to you? What kind of things are known to you? Things that are within time and space. So this means as long as there's time, right, I can objectify it. How long is this pen lasting now? Gone. Okay? So what? 5 seconds? You objectify that. Can you objectify the cause of the universe? That which is the truth of time and space? No. Why not? Because to objectify, you have to be within time and space. But we're talking about the cause of the universe, which is outside of time and space. So there's 2 things that you cannot objectify: the subject and the cause of the universe, which we call in Sanskrit Ishvara. Because to objectify Ishvara, what are you talking about? Ishvara is that which is in the past and in the future and in the present. The only thing that you and I can objectify are objects: the wall, the air, a person speaking, this table, the glass. To say that I'm objectifying Ishvara is wrong, because Ishvara is all of those things that have happened millions and billions of years ago and that are yet to happen tomorrow. Can you objectify tomorrow? You can only objectify an idea of tomorrow, but you cannot objectify the whole of tomorrow. Not only here, but all in this entire universe tomorrow. You can only objectify, I can objectify tomorrow, but that's just your idea. It's not actually tomorrow. So this means you cannot objectify Ishvara, because Ishvara is also all of the things that are yet to happen but haven't happened. And all of those things that did happen, and they're gone. They're back into what we call potential. They're back into potential. They happened. They're no more. 2 things we cannot objectify. Now the question is, even after you come to Vedanta, you still can't objectify the conscious subject, you. When I say the conscious subject, I. And you cannot objectify Ishvara. If you cannot objectify them, then how are we going to know them? Because that's why we're here. We're here to discover what is the cause of the universe, and we're here to discover what is the nature of I. Well, it turns out you can. How so? You need a methodology. What is a methodology? It is that which reveals something that is true right now. So we are not producing Atma. Atma means I am. We're not producing Atma. We are revealing that which is already here, but is just denied to me because of my own focus on objects, constant focus on objects, on what I need to do tomorrow, what I'm going to do after this course, all of these, all life objects. So methodology brings out that which is true here and now. It's not like Ishvara is somewhere away. Ishvara is right here, and I have to understand it. How is that so? So look at this. I'm going to do an experiment with you. I'm going to show you something. Please wait. Okay. Can you see this? Okay. How long did you have to wait to see that? Yeah, too long, right? Okay, I'm gonna now, remember the color of your front door of the house. What is the color of your front door of the house, of your house? Okay. How long did that take? Yeah, it took a while. You see what happened? Your mind had to work to access that information. Okay, one more. Okay, calculate this. 2 plus 2 plus 1 plus 3 plus 5 plus 10. The answer is? So in other words, you still had to access your mind to process the information. You had to wait for me to here 2 plus 3 plus 2 equals, and then you had to wait for your brain to give you an answer. You had to wait. And if someone's a little bit older, they're going to say, 20, whatever, right? But now, if I ask you, so in other words, you had to use your senses. You had to use your mind. But suppose I ask you, do you exist? Do you exist? How long do you have to wait for that? Do you have to let your mind go? Hold on, let me just calculate. I'm breathing, yeah, he's talking to me, I'm hearing information. How long does it take you to access that knowledge? Instantaneous. It's evident. So now, in Sanskrit, because it's evident, in fact, we have a word for it, we call it swataha siddha, which means it is self-evident. And because it's self-evident, it doesn't need to be accessed or processed in the mind. Now the question is, if it's self-evident, then why do I need Vedanta? Right? What's the issue here? The issue is that it's confused. That which is self-evident to you, your existence, your I am, the subject, the conscious subject, is confused with an object. In other words, I don't quite know what is it that is self-evident. What about me is my thought self-evident? Is my experience self-evident? What exactly is self-evident? Therefore, Vedanta has to show you what exactly is it that's swataha siddha and that which relies or depends upon that which is self-evident. And what Vedanta says is that why is there a mix-up between the conscious subject and the object? What happened? Why is there a mix-up? Because we all know I am. It's self-evident to all of us. But why is there a mix-up? The answer is, according to Vedanta, is atyasa. Atyasa, I'll write the word down, means superimposition. Okay? Superimposition. So superimposition means something is superimposed on something else. Okay? Specifically in Sanskrit, what we mean by superimposition is atasmin tad buddhi. Atasmin tad buddhi. So what is the official definition of superimposition? That cognizing that which is not. Cognizing that which is not. So you're not understanding that which is not. In other words, I understand my I am as that which it is not intrinsically. What is your I am? It is free of all attributes. It is free of your body, of your mind. It is eternal. But when I look at my I am, I'm confused. Am I the object? Am I my thought? Am I my life? Am I my concerns? What exactly am I here? Therefore, when Vedanta speaks of this, it wants to then show you, because my I am, my identity is placed in all of the things that I am not. I therefore become the speaker, I am the walker, I am the meditator, I am the inquirer, I am the thinker, I am the one who is going through pain, I am the successful one, the unsuccessful one, all lifelong, like this. I am a doer, in other words. When it says I am a doer, it just means I am the one who is now teaching. I am teaching. And then from your standpoint, I am listening. So all of these roles are superimpositions. In other words, they've placed themselves over your I am, and that is how you see yourself. You genuinely see yourself as that which you are not. In truth, what you are is eternal, free of life, free of your life. But owing to atyasa, I get born like this and I start to assume this is who I am. And what happens then? All of the subsequent errors start to come. Oh, look, I'm born with a body. Oh, they're having fun. I'm going to go over there and have fun. Oh, great food. I'm going to have some great food over there. In other words, now your I am, look at this, gets put in this world with a body and a mind. That's the first thing that happens for everyone. For me, for you, for everyone. The I am feeling small then goes into the world and starts to form a complex about it. Because I am small, it means I am not good enough. It means that I need to, become better. It means that I need to become more. So what happens now? You've now double distanced yourself away from your reality. The first is you've gotten a body-mind. Okay? You came with that. You didn't imagine that. Did you imagine your body-mind? No. You came with this. Because I came with this and I see myself as one little being in this universe, separate from everything else, I start to have a complex. Oh, I am, and then fill in the blank. I'm not good enough. I'm unworthy. I will never be good enough. So now you've got Atyasa, number 1, to solve, and you've got Atyasa, number 2, to solve. You've got 2 Atyasas, 2 superimpositions. One of them is something that I came with, and the second one is something that I've created on my own. Therefore, Vedanta has to first address which one? Which of these 2? Which superimposition has to address first? The second one? Okay, why the second one?
Because it's on the surface, so it comes first.
It comes first, yeah. See, we have an example of this. Suppose we have an example of snake, right? Suppose you see a snake into the distance, and you're kind of like afraid, you're apprehensive about approaching the snake, okay? But is it really a snake considering it's a rope? Is it really a snake considering in reality it's a rope? It's not a snake, it's actually a rope. But this means as long as I see the rope as a snake, will I ever interact or look at the nature of the rope? No. Why not? Huh? Danger. Yeah, danger, right? If I go over there, I'll get stung. If I go into the world, right, I'll get hurt. Someone's going to injure me. So this means that as long as I'm carrying my own biases, my own personal stuff, it's going to keep me in my own little world. As long as you're in your own little world, then by the time we talk about your body-mind, the nature of your body-mind, you're going to say, no, I don't want to analyze this. This is too much for me. I've got things to deal with. So Vedanta wants to first show you we need to resolve our own stuff. That's what keeps the individual living in a little personal bubble. And as long as there's a personal bubble, right, one will never come to a point of analyzing the world to be nothing but you, nothing but one reality. When I go to my parents' house, I sometimes try to, explain or talk about this a little bit. And the response is not exactly what I want. It's not as I expect. The response is, this is, yeah, you're right, son. This is all, you need to survive in this world. Life is very tough. You need to, make money. And I'm like, I know this, I understand that, but there is something much bigger here than just, making money and surviving and having a good health. And then again, my dad goes back to, no, it's okay. You need to survive. You need to be healthy. It's a good example of what it means that when the mind is stuck, right, on one little bubble, how I need to look at my stuff. Life is hard. Is life really hard? Right? Is life really hard? When someone says life is hard, to whom does that belong? Does that belong to life, or does that belong to the one who says it's hard? So as long as life is hard for me, I'm not even going to engage in the rope. I'm not even going to engage in the world. Okay? Therefore, what needs to happen is that you need to look at your own personal stories. Stories which keep on building, stories which say how I So I'm like this, I am like that, this is all nonsense, this is all, I've heard this before. This doesn't belong to anyone but you. So one needs to be really honest to themselves and say, how many stories am I really creating which is denying me from really being interested in what is being shown here? One common example is what happens in some classes, and I've heard this before, is I start to speak about knowledge, right? The cause of the universe, who you are. And someone's going to say, yeah, but how do I apply this? How do I apply this in real life? In other words, how do I apply this, reality in real life? And you think about, how can you ask that? I'm speaking about what is true right now. How can you apply what is true right now? In other words, where's the person? In their own personal stuff, thinking, no, this is hard. I don't feel good listening to this. You don't understand my condition. I'm going through pain. In other words, they're still stuck in, I am this, I am that, I am this, I am that. Therefore, even while the teacher is speaking about your nature, the person's thinking, yeah, but how do I apply this in shopping, in the park, with other people? That question belongs to values. That question belongs to your conduct. That's a different matter, which is to be addressed. But when it comes to the nature of reality, that is also a different matter. So one needs to have cognitive understanding. What are we talking about? Otherwise, when we talk about the values, you say, I don't need values, talk about the reality. And then when someone talks about the reality, yeah, but how do I apply this? I don't feel good right now. This is not applicable to me in real life. We're talking about the person. We're talking about you, who you are right now. Where's the question of applying you? How do you apply you? Can't do it, because you're always you. So the teacher wants to show you there is a reality about you that is effortless. It doesn't need to be done. It doesn't need to be accessed. It doesn't need to be sort of, you don't need to manipulate your mind and access you. You are always that which is right now true and always is true. And therefore the teacher has to reveal that to you. Now, I want to show you a quick demonstration of superimposition. Okay, so look at this example. Suppose so far you're saying this is not making sense. Can you just show me a simple example of the concept of superimposition? What is it that produces an error? Okay, suppose you have a glass right now, and this glass is transparent. And this glass, metaphorically, can be compared to I am, that which is transparent, free of attributes. That means nothing belongs to it. But behind this glass, what do we have? Right? I hope you can see this. You have a color. Okay? Now, you're going to say from your standpoint, the glass is the green. And then, right after it's green, the glass is red. Right after red, the glass is blue. Now the thing is, the red, green, and blue, they immediately follow each other. It's never free. The glass is never free of a color. So they're constantly changing colors, constantly. It's never like this. You first see blue and then space, and you go, the glass is pure. I got it. One after the other, there's constantly colors changing. So now you say, well, how am I ever going to know the glass as that which is without color? How will I ever know I am as that which is free of my body and my mind and my thoughts and my life and my concerns? How will I know this? Well, you use logic. So look at this. Just the fact that this glass can show one color and immediately replace it by another color, and then this color goes away and immediately gets replaced by this color, what does this show you? What does this experiment show you? The glass is?
It's not changing, the water isn't changing.
And how did you come to that conclusion? Good?
Because it's the color that you're changing everything.
Okay, does someone want to expand on that? How do you show that the glass is intrinsically pure of color?
Well, otherwise it couldn't be blue and red and green at the same time. I mean, as it's changing, it shows need to be transparent.
So if I understood properly, what Sean is saying is that if the glass if a glass took a color, if it took on a color, then that means by the time you show red, you would have red and green. But the fact that the glass can get rid of one color and show another color, what does this show? That the glass is intrinsically free of all colors. So this means I don't have to free this glass from attributes. I simply use logic and I understand just the fact that this glass can constantly let go of the previous color and show the new color, let go of that color and show a new color, means it is never stuck with the previous attribute. So now if you look at your own experience, what is your own experience like? You have a thought, and that thought for a moment lasts, and that moment is gone, taking that thought right along with it. And then the next moment containing a new thought or emotion comes. And that presents to yourself, to you for a moment, and that goes away. Do you ever experience, for example, I show you this right now, and it's gone. And then you're available to see this, and that's gone. And you're available to see blue, and that's gone. Do you ever experience, I show you like red, and then you have a kind of see two things. In other words, the previous color has not stuck onto you. If it were to stick onto you, then you would have that experience constantly in your life. If you were sad, I am sad, then you could not ever experience happiness. If you were happy color, then you could never experience not happy. If you were successful, you could never experience a little bit of, being shaken up. If you were sort of worried, you could never experience peacefulness. If you were peace, could you ever experience anxiety? If you were love, could you ever experience hate? If you were hate, could you ever experience love? In other words, just the fact that in the presence of I, a new experience comes, it goes away, a new experience comes, it goes away, means that the I never took on the attribute of the prior experience. Is this making sense so far? Okay. So, that was a general introduction to superimposition. Again, in order to get clear about what I'm saying, there is a certain aspect of personal growth. And this is what the Bhagavad Gita is for. This is why we will have topics of meditation, because the Kena Upanishad is speaking about topics of nature of I. But then the mind is going to say, yeah, but I'm not relating to this. This is just going over my head. This is too much. I'm just not connecting to this knowledge. Look at this. I am not connecting to this knowledge. This knowledge is speaking about you. In other words, I am not connecting to I. But what am I connecting to? Not I. Give me something else. Give me something else that's going to please me. This is why the Bhagavad Gita has two sections. The first is Yoga Shastra, and the second is Brahma Vidya. Brahma Vidya speaks about the knowledge, who you are. Yoga Shastra says, in order to connect with what is being said, in order to take interest in what is being said, in order to want to be curious in what is being said, to pay attention to what is being said, to want to know more about what is being said, to live about what is being said, you have to have a certain maturity of the mind. There is no way around it. And that maturity of the mind is what's able to look at its own stuff. It's stuff that is uncomfortable, and yet the very stuff that is uncomfortable is making oneself resist one's true self. Because one's true self is that which is totally pure, that which is completely free of all attributes. So the mind, being so full of stuff, it's so used to working with, right, stuff that is not pure, stuff that is sort of a little bit, mixed up with other desires, with, like likes and dislikes, what I like, what I don't like. It's so used to this. So the moment you present it something that is just absolutely free and permanent and eternal, it's like, I'm not comfortable with this, right? I want to go back to my old little bubble. And this bubble, again, is what we call the snake. The snake is my own personal superimposition. I don't like this, I don't like the teacher, I don't like the class, I don't like this, I don't like Vedanta. It just endless. The list is endless. And a teacher hears all of the examples and all of the words and all of the stuff that goes in people's heads. So there's very little that I haven't heard, but it's amazing how much the mind will create and what kind of stories it will create not to sit down and pay attention. It will say things like, no, this is too intellectual. This is too intellectual. Okay, what do you want then? What should I say? Should I speak to your heart? And what is your heart then? Define heart. You're not speaking to the heart, you're speaking to the head. There is some truth to this. But at the same time, the person who says that has to define what exactly do you mean by head and heart. It is true. Heart, we metaphorically use the word for I'm living it. Head is I've understood it, but I'm not connecting to it. It's a little bit too intellectual. To drop it into the heart, this is a common Western language. It's non-existent in India, by the way. It's Western language. And I still find it a little bit tricky. It's like, what do you mean connected to the heart? Bring it down to the heart. So I had to look this up and see what people mean. And apparently no one really knows. It's just everyone's got this idea of heart, and yet it's undefined. So what I kind of understood about the heart is I need to live it, and it needs to emanate through my being. But emanating through your being is nothing but understanding what is being talked about. So it's just a different language that a person is using. In Vedanta, we say understanding the reality. In the West, sometimes a person will say it needs to drop down into the heart. Okay, fine, we'll let it drop down into the heart. What else could this mean, this dropping down into the heart? Does anyone know?
Isn't it about your emotional centers, like the manas? It's more in the relation with buddhi. These two, because manas can also mean heart.
Okay. Okay, this is a possibility. So
I would say bhakti.
Bhakti, devotion, excellent. So again, yes, there has to be an emotional connection. If it's just all right, a little bit of too much in the head, then you're like, look, just relax. You need to sort of start to devote to this, yes, to invoke a devotional attitude, rather than just sort of going through these formulas. So in that sense, we say, drop it down into the heart, become devotional in nature. And it's not a process that happens overnight. It is something that the person thinks about and has to, bring into their life. And we will talk about specifically how do you drop it down into the heart. Okay? So I will use language of the tradition. I'm not going to use Western words. I call it bhakti or devotion. Specifically, we have the term karma yoga. Okay, and this will be discussed briefly. Okay, and lastly, what I want to say is that we're introducing the Kena Upanishad, by the way, is that different texts in Vedanta will start from different points, and all of them are talking about only three things. So there's so many Upanishads, right? And there's the Gita, and there's the Tattva Bodha. And you say, they all start from different standpoints. Like Kena Upanishad starts from the cause of the universe. And then you have Aitareya Upanishad, it starts from I am, right? The nature of I am. And then we have Bhagavad Gita, it starts with Arjun having an emotional breakdown, and he is resorting for Krishna's help to get him out of his existential angst, and he needs to understand what is to be done situationally. What do I do right now in this challenging situation in my life? And a second question that Arjuna asks Krishna is, what is the purpose than just being a king and kind of solving situational problems? What is the highest purpose of living? And thereby, Gita starts in a different approach. Tattvabodha starts with, who remembers Tattvabodha? What's the very first thing we start in Tattvabodha? The sadhana chatushtaya, okay? The fourfold qualifications, and they are dispassion, discrimination, okay, if you remember this. So, and therefore, all of them talk about three things essentially, and they all come together. Talk about the nature of I. Who am I? What am I? What is my real, true essence? Who am I really? What is the nature of the cause of the universe? And what is my relationship to the cause of the universe? So essentially, all of them, all Upanishads talk about these three questions. And lastly, I want to remind us, it's very tempting to say, I got it. I understood. This kind of language. I got it. I understood. It can become, right, a little bit of a kind of an overconfidence thing, like I got it. I know there are people here, who are, well educated, who have gone through a lot of listening, but still understand one thing. End of the day, there is so much more to learn. This is a fact. There are so many situations where I thought, I can communicate, I can hold my conversations, and then I made a mistake. And then I realized, I have so much more to learn how to actually express my what I'm feeling. I don't know how to express what I'm feeling in a way that doesn't make the other person a little bit disturbed. How do I express it in a non-disturbing way? And then I go online and I look at these nonviolent communication by Marshall. Do you know this? Nonviolent. It's beautiful. And the four methods of communicating. And then I try that, and I'm going, it doesn't work. I cannot quite get in. What is it that I'm feeling? What is it that I'm needing right now? Do I even know this? And then I have to go back and then again look into, what are my needs? How do I express what my needs are? So it's a constant feedback. The world gives you feedback, lets you know you don't know everything. Now you got a choice. You can just kind of put that aside and say, it's fine, it's all an illusion anyway. This is one way of how commonly in the pseudo-spiritual world you will hear about it. Just dismiss it, it's not important. Vedanta never says this, Advaita Vedanta. It says you need to have a relatively successful life, a relatively successful career, because if I've got problems in my career or something's not going well at work, then that gets carried over into everything else. This is how we are. The mind tends to distribute what it's feeling about one thing into all other things. And therefore, it is in it for you to have a relatively smooth career, relatively smooth, right, relationship with those people that you're with. Because it really does pass over. And as it passes over, it's almost like taking some processing power away from the brain. And therefore, it's not paying attention. There was one case where two students were in the class, and her daughter was going through a divorce. And I thought they were paying attention, right? Because they were looking at me. But then when they came up to me, they said, I couldn't focus because I was just so anxious about what my daughter is going through. And I was surprised. I was like, wow, they were looking at me and I thought they were paying attention, but they were not, they couldn't because of a situational challenge. So you can see, and they're not doing this intentionally. You're not trying to kind of ignore intentionally. There is something in the mind that is unavoidable, and it's making it hard to be present and listen to the knowledge. So Vedanta again mentions, or at least Yoga Shastra of the Bhagavad Gita, you have to have a relatively prosperous life to be able to have a smooth study session, to have a smooth contemplation session. Okay, and therefore I want to now move on to our first verse of Kena Upanishad, and it's going to be the prayer. Okay, so let's go through the prayer. Om Apyayantu. Om Apyayantu. Mamangani. Mamangani. Vak pranashchakshu. Vak pranashchakshu. So let's do it together from the beginning. Om Apyayantu Mamangani Vak pranashchakshu Shrotram Atho Balamindriyani Shrotram Atho Balamindriyani. Again. Shrotramatho balamindriyani chasarvani. Chasarvani. Whole line together. Om Apyayantu Mamangani Vak pranashchakshu Shrotramatho balamindriyani chasarvani. Sarvam Brahma Upanishadam. Sarvam Brahma Upanishadam. Maham Brahma Nirakuryam. Maham Brahma Nirakuryam. Second line together. Sarvam Brahma Upanishadam. Maham Brahma Nirakuryam. Mama Brahma Nirakarot. Mama Brahma Nirakarot. Again. Mama Brahma Nirakarot. From the beginning. Om Apyayantu Mamangani Vak pranashchakshu Shrotram Atho Balamindriyani chasarvani. Sarvam Brahma Upanishadam. Maham Brahma Nirakuryam. Mama Brahma Nirakarot. Anirakaranam. Anirakaranam. Again. Anirakaranam. Astvanirakaranam. Astvanirakaranam. Again. Astvanirakaranam. And the whole line. Anirakaranam. Astvanirakaranam. Me astu. Me astu. Again, third line. Anirakaranam Astvanirakaranam me astu. Tadatmani. Tadatmani. Nirate ya Upanishatsu. Nirate ya Upanishatsu. Together. Tadatmani nirateya upanishatsu dharmaste mayi santu. Dharmaste mayi santu. Again. Dharmaste mayi santu. Te mayi santu. Te mayi santu. Again. Te mayi santu. Line 1 together. Om apyayantu mamangani vak pranashchakshu shrotramatho balamindriyani cha sarvani sarvam brahma upanishadam maham brahma nirakuryam mama brahma nirakarot anirakaranam astvanirakaranam me astu. Tadatmani nirate ya upanishatsu dharmaste mayi santu. Te mayi santu. Okay. So apyayantu mamangani vak prana. Probably heard vak, speech, prana, physiological functions. Chakshu, your physical eyes, shrotram, and ears. Atho balamindriyani cha sarvani. So, this verse, or this prayer, is the opening prayer of Kena Upanishad. So we are officially starting Kena Upanishad from this verse and onwards. So it's saying that, may my limbs be used wisely. Now, why would you want to use your limbs wisely, such as your eye and your ears and your mouth? Why would you want to use them wisely when it comes to learning and ascertaining and understanding? Got it. So what she's saying is that you're offered the world, and your eyes will see the world that is offered. What I do with what is offered is up to me. No one is forcing me what and where my eyes get exposed to. You have total ownership where you want to direct your eyes. I can direct my eyes to soap operas, which is okay if you like to watch that. You can also direct your eyes to things like like a beautiful Shiva, or something that instills devotion in you. It is entirely up to you. So this means the student asks themselves, what do I want to expose my eyes to? At least what is important to me. To that I expose my eyes to. Why? Because whatever enters your eyes enters your mind. Whatever enters your mind, you have to then bear. It stays in your mind and it produces a certain narrative, a certain emotion, a certain image. And your question to ask oneself is, do I want to be with this emotion that this image has produced? Do I want to be thinking these thoughts which this image has produced? If not, then you have the power to change what you look at. But it's not only changing what you look at, it's also using your mind to understand it in a way differently than how you usually look at things. So it's not like now, don't look at, things because they're going to distract you. There's nothing wrong with things. All that is here is Ishvara. What is there to not look at? There's nothing wrong with anything. It is, what do I do with what I see? Same thing with Shrotram. Ears. What I expose my ears to is up to you. No one is forcing you to listen to one thing or the other. So you have to ask yourself, what kind of material instills inspiration in me? What kind of material brings out the best in me? That is in your control. And then we have prana. Prana means life force. In other words, if you have a little bit of, suppose, high blood pressure or low blood pressure or digestion issues or headaches, could you genuinely, right, kind of do your things in that kind of a state of body, right? It's very hard. So your body has to be relatively healthy in order to look at this knowledge and think about it. If I'm looking at it with a high blood pressure or a headache or aches and pains in my body, then it's going to override your thoughtfulness. It's going to override that need to connect with the knowledge. Okay? Now, suppose someone throws an objection and they say, again, what does a healthy mind, what does a healthy eye, healthy ear, healthy prana, what does this have anything to do with Atma, with I am? When I am is totally free of prana and ears and eyes, it's totally free of all of that. What does this have anything to do with Atma? What's your answer to this?
It's an instrument.
It's an instrument. Okay. Would you like to expand on that? What do you do with an instrument?
Meaning we are like the vessel of all these experiences that we can have. If we don't have eyes, we couldn't see the beautiful things, or if we can't hear, we can't hear the beautiful chickens out there.
Yeah, so if your instrument, in other words, is feeling not kind of, up to standards, it's a little bit, achy and it's falling apart, then it's very hard to concentrate. Is this your experience? It's very hard to concentrate, even though you have your best intentions to capture. The body is just saying, attend to me, attend to me, attend to me. So therefore, the body has to be in a relatively healthy state. There's no question of denying one's health, because all you have, as Andrea says, is your body, end of the day. And that body, through that instrument, you understand who you are. So you're giving, look at this, you're given a limited instrument to understand your limitless nature. So if I say I don't need this limited instrument, it's not my limitless nature, then I can't understand my limitless nature because I need the healthy limited instrument. It's kind of ironic. I need a limited instrument only to understand I'm much bigger than my limited instrument. So in this way, sharp, discerning, healthy instrument is crucial. So whenever we chant this, what we're really saying is, let me remember to take care of my body, of my health, of my eyes, of my ears. Let me be empathetic. Let me have empathy for this instrument, which is sitting down and trying genuinely to understand, which has traveled for, how many kilometers have you traveled? I don't know. Who's traveled over 10,000 kilometers here? Okay, you got it easy, right? But anyway, right? So, but still, I guess, it's kind of a challenging thing, right? You're going, you could say, I'm not going to go. I'm just going to look at the recordings, right? You could say that. You could say, I'm not going to go. And then you can create whatever reasons you want. So just to show up here, it says something, right? I get it. If you're going to go for whatever reason, it's fine. It's not in my control. But just to be here makes a big statement. You had to have a relatively healthy instrument. In fact, we had 2 cancellations, right? Because their instruments were not capable of staying. So this is a thing. So this means you have a genuine interest, and then your instrument just throws you something and you say, I can't go. Therefore, it's a reminder, having something in one's life that maintains a relatively good health. We have Pilates, for example, having a strong core, having a Tai Chi Chuan. If you want to learn some, I can show you. Who wants to learn some movements? Okay, so we need to find a free slot of time, and I can show you some movements, of some energy movements. Okay, and I tell you, it makes a huge difference, unbelievable difference. There was a time in my life which I thought exercise is useless. You just basically walk, that's enough. And I just couldn't stay awake. Not even coffee couldn't work. Nothing worked. And then I just looked at some exercises of Pilates. The whole idea is having a strong core. And I started to do that every day. Too much energy now. Now it's a problem in a good way. And all I did was just add one little aspect to my life, no matter if I don't feel like it, I still do it because there is a huge, immense benefit of having energy throughout the day. It helps you a lot. It makes you more cheerful, more capable, more kind of discerning, more willing to participate. And so it's a huge thing, actually. It's a huge thing, even though it's just the body. But it's so much more than that. Okay, so now, so a third session, we will talk about the details of and your mind. Okay, we will delve into what is the mind. So when we say the mind, what specifically is the mind consisting of? What is it made of? So we'll go more into detail about your thought processes, your emotions, and also we will go through the rest of the verse. So Sarvam Brahma Upanishadam, and what does the whole verse mean? Okay. Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnam Eva Avashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.